This episode of Hero Club is supported by our good friends over at Mage Hand Press. Check them out at magehandpress.com and buy their High Seas supplement for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition to Shanghai your own group of adventurers. If you like Hero Club, remember to rate and review on your preferred platform and tell your friends.
Welcome to Hero Club. I'm Nick Williams.
And I am George Primavera.
George and I have been playing D&D together for years.
Now, a lot of people think you need to be a big, huge nerd boy to play Dungeons & Dragons.
But in reality, you just have to be willing to spend 4 hours of your own time on a weekday trashed on cheap beer cross-legged around a coffee table.
I lost a game of Flip Cup in 2012, so I had to buy all the books and learn how to be Dungeon Master. My dad was disappointed.
Yeah, he was. But after a game or two, we realized that it's actually a really fun and effective way to tell an awesome story.
Yeah, it's like long-form improv, but you kill more people.
Here's what you need to know. George creates a world and the framework for a cool story.
And the players, like Nick, create characters beforehand, all with special abilities, sometimes magical, sometimes not, and they adventure through the story as best they can, trying not to die.
We, the players, roll dice to see if our improvised actions fail or succeed, trying to beat a number in George's head that he promises he doesn't change at will.
But at the table, I am God, my game, my rules.
Okay, so it's as nerdy as you thought. You know what? Just off, man.
Whoa,
right off,
all right,
okay?
Nick, maybe don't tell everybody to F off. And it's not that nerdy. I mean, we get rid of all that stupid math, and we add music and sound effects and stuff like that, so, you know, it's cool.
Anyway, these stories do follow a linear plot, so if you want to know what's going on, start at the beginning of any season you like and have fun with it.
Without further ado,
welcome to Hero Club! Yeah!
The crew of the Old Wives' Tale had put the pirate scourge known as the Carnivore in the water and fled to the east, leaving Denacruz behind them, perhaps for the last time. Though they left the entirety of the Armada and the mainland of Emporia in their wake, Muldoon and his crew were too wise to think the hardest part of their journey had come and gone, and so they readied themselves for the trials they believed to be ahead. On every map of Emporia east of Denacruz, there is only blank space and a warning. Here, there'll be monsters.
the Old Wives' Tale glides eastward at a steady pace over increasingly calm waters. In the wee small hours of the morning, Drake Muldoon kicks around his disheveled office, a patched hole in the floor where the phylactery's energy blast tore through the galleon, and a new crude skylight above from the same expulsion. Bastian, Vivian, and Edgar sit on piles of some of the wreckage and talk about their next move.
Well, that was a closer shave than I would have liked. Good showing, though, all.
Close shave or not, I still ain't happy about heading east, Captain. Between the lot of us, we've got way too much baggage to be headed that way.
It is true, Captain, our cargo is rather sensitive.
I didn't mean literal baggage, you salted roaches, Udder. I meant proverbial baggage.
But there's no need to be crass.
Well, Vivian, what lies west, eh? The Armada? Certain arrest? Ah.
The entire salted Imperial Armada. We know what this thing can do, and we cannot let it get into their hands.
Listen, Captain. Vivian Stoker can kill blackjacks till he's cold in the ground. We can escape prison. I ain't so sure that'll be the case in the east.
Well, if what you're saying is true, you've been dead in the ground already. And that's in the west.
Well, not in the ground.
But you have been dead, yes?
Aye, and it wasn't so bad. I popped right back up.
This is concerning, Captain. The implications of such an occurrence are dark indeed.
Churchill is right. As I have said, these are dark times. But this thing that we have, if the Armada gets a hold of it, I do not think that there will be a lot of open ocean left. Churchill, question. How did you know that, Captain?
You're referring to Blackbriar, I take it?
Yes.
Nicholas and I were aboard the same ship when we were overtaken by the Carnivore. The original Carnivore. Nicholas was not the first. As far as I know, the crew of the Blackbriar follows a sort of cyclical pattern, constantly consuming their captain. Nicholas was a good friend. He was a good man. I don't know what twisted him this way, but it must have been an adversity that none of us can fathom.
All the same, he's under the water now.
In a photo flash of light, a rip seems to open up in the fabric of space in the center of the office, and Lilia appears, dropping with a thud onto the floor.
Oh, bend it, Lilia, we're in a meeting!
I was just thinking about you.
How on earth did you do that? That's not your usual little door trick.
No, I suppose not. And Lilia looks down at her hands towards the now open compass, revealing the red button within. So turns out this thing can open, and it's got a little button inside, and I pushed it. Then a bunch of weird stuff happened, lots of whoo and wha, and I was kind of flying back and forth. And then I just thought about how much I love being a pirate and the captain and how well he handled that whole thing. And before you know it, we're just right here.
Captain, I can't believe this curly tail is allowed a musket aboard the ship.
Don't badmouth Harold. He's saved us on multiple occasions.
Wasn't Harold I was badmouthing.
Edgar is beaming at Lilia and whispers under his breath, "You solved it."
Bastion leans into Drake. Captain, I kind of thought that Lilia was in here just being very quiet. I already thought that she was here. That really scared the scat out of me.
We're going to need to have a conversation about casual magic items aboard the ship. I just feel I ought to know when one is aboard. Mr. Churchill?
Seems reasonable. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier.
As Drake looks around the room, everybody notices a small, quiet ticking noise. And everybody looks down and realizes it's coming from the compass that Lilia is holding in her hand. Suddenly, the button that was pushed in by Lilia earlier pops outward. And in very much the same effect as before, she disappears in a flash of light.
Again, Mr. Churchill, we have no idea what this thing even does.
Lilia? Lilia, are you in the room?
Do you see her in the room?
Well, no, but maybe she's invisible. I don't know what this thing does.
Precisely what I've been saying this whole time.
Well, your point is well taken. Lilia!
Lilia!
It's all right. I'm back up here.
Alright, I think that we can agree that she is literally the worst person to have this ability to just poof in and out of places.
Now there's something we agree on, Bastion. Magic is not meant to be used for fun and whimsy.
Hey, her fun and whimsy has gotten us out of many sticky situations in the past.
There's a sharp whistle from outside that you can assume comes from Kip Lockerbie at the helm.
Captain, there be something in the fog there.
Drake rushes out of the cabin and up to the helm. What is it, Kip?
Look ahead there. Through this thick morning fog, a small ship floats silently forward. Chipped red paint on the sides, significant damage done to the vessel on all sides. The name becomes visible as the boat begins to slow. The Sable Rose. Notably, the ship is coming from the east.
You there, in the ship, state your purpose.
From the other ship, you hear a voice call out.
How about you state your purpose?
Yeah, you state your purpose.
I asked you first. State your business.
I asked you confidently. State your business.
Vivian, having joined Drake on deck, taps him on the shoulder. You want I should blow a hole in the side of him, Captain?
Slow your roll, Vivian. We don't know if they're friend or foe yet.
Bastion, having joined the rest of the crew, looks up to the crow's nest. Lilia! Do we have eyes on them?
Yep. Their boat's really tiny.
From the other ship again.
You two are so confrontational. Can't you just say hello to start a conversation off for the one time?
So dramatic. Hello.
I still don't know what your purpose is.
Greetings, Captain of the other ship. Our purpose is just to trade. We're coming back from an expedition on which we suffered great damage to our ship.
Well, you've run across the old wives' tale. And me, Captain Drake Muldoon. Time will tell if that was unlucky or lucky for you.
Well, Captain Drake Muldoon, it seems that we don't really have that much time as there's a hole in our ship. So, if you kindly would just pull over to that sandbar there, we can unload some of our cargo for you. No charge.
What do you think? Do you think we should do it?
Vivian shrugs.
The ship pulls up alongside the Old Wives' Tale, and the bullhorns are dropped as 3 members of the Sable Rose's crew move to the edge and speak to all of you from just 20 feet away. Staring across the water at you are a small shrew dressed in clothing that is brightly colored and way too small for him. Wearing an eye patch with a diamond on it and a feathery, flamboyant shirt is a tall, black-horned gazelle, and a salamander wearing tattered rags.
All right, we'll trade, but no funny business. We'll follow your ship to the sandbar.
I don't do funny business, but I do dance, and I only work with those who dance.
It's a prerequisite for getting all our stuff, so we don't sink, you know.
Captain. I dance.
Yeah, we've got that covered.
Vivian starts heading below deck. That's just what we bloody need. Another hog-bent bastion on the ship. I'll be in my bloody cabin. Oh, scat, salt.
The Sable Rose follows your directions and begins to sail through the fog towards a very small sandbar that is just laying out in the middle of the ocean. The Sable Rose drops anchor, and as you come around the side of it, you can see that there are no portholes for cannons. The ship looks unarmed.
Captain, before we go into this, I do not want to alarm you, but the Penguins have notified me that in the latest attack we have lost many supplies, so this is actually quite needed. So do not show desperation, but really try to go for it for this one, you know? Try to get them for what they've got.
That's the only way I know how.
A plank extends from the Sable Rose, is grabbed by a few crew members of the Old Wives' Tale, and the ships begin to exchange crew as people begin to talk and generally share a drink and have a conversation. Now that you're alongside the small merchant schooner, you can see that the crew is made up of about 30 or so small creatures, all wearing clothing in various states of disrepair. Whatever journey they're returning from must have been rough. Across the plank, the gazelle struts forward, leading the shrew and the salamander behind her, and she steps lightly onto the deck of the Old Wives' Tale.
Do you like soup?
That's one thing there's no shortage of on the ship. We got potato soup, we got clam chowder. And we got vegetable barley for me! Scoots! Oh, sorry, I guess we should introduce ourselves. My name's Scoots! You can call me Cornelius.
And I am Elena Maria Consuela, but you can call me Elena.
Sorry about the unpleasantries before. We've just been through hell ourselves. Drake takes Elena's hand and kisses it. Captain Drake Muldoon, at your service.
Elena inspects her hand and sniffs it. Thank you.
All right.
Cornelius offers his hand out to Captain Drake Muldoon and waits.
Drake tentatively grabs it and shakes it up and down.
Well, let's get to bartering. What do you fine folks need?
What do you got?
The shrew rushes to the back, begins to mobilize a few members of the crew, and immediately they begin to bring crates from underneath the boat up to the surface. Popping the lids of these crates reveals various barrels of wheat, fruit, even a little bit of live cargo in the forms of crickets and ants. The crew of the Old Wives' Tale enthusiastically begins helping to offload the cargo.
Lilia, having come down from the crow's nest, now addresses Elena directly. I really like your feathery thing. Do you have any more of those?
No, but I do have an extra shirt. Come to my closet, I show you.
Does it have feathers on it?
Yes.
All right.
Elena takes Lilia by the hand and disappears into the cabin on the Sable Rose.
You know, at first I didn't know how you were going to approach me, but now I see you are very nice. Anything you want on the ship is yours.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very nice. I don't have much for bartering, but I do have these anklets that I made myself when I was at home. And Lilia sticks out her leg and waves it in the air, her anklets gently banging together.
Elena has a very emotional reaction to this. She's never seen such beautiful anklets in her life.
Cutting back onto the decks of the ships, leaving Lilia and Elena to their own devices, Cornelius joins the executive crew of the Old Wives' Tale in Drake Muldoon's quarters.
Scoots, keep watch for any other ships. We don't want to get surprised in this fog. Aye, sir, on it. Now, Captain Muldoon and company, we want to thank you again for coming to this sandbar and assisting us. We should be able to make it home with the reduced weight now.
Oh, it is not a problem at all, Cornelius. It seems you have been very lucky this day. It seems you have a hole in your ship. Well, I have a team of penguins who are very good at plugging up holes. If that helps us get anything else from you, then my crew of penguins would be happy to help. And as previously stated, if your captain needs a dance partner, I am a very good one, I guess. It's not a big deal.
Well, thank you for the offer, but the damage to the ship is to the main structure. It's irreparable, I'm afraid. We should be able to float home.
Cutting outside to the deck of the Sable Rose, 3 of the penguins are currently doing an accidental Three Stooges routine with a grapefruit. Biff and Boff hold the grapefruit aloft as Richardson rappels down from the crow's nest on a rope, grabs the grapefruit from both of them, leaving Biff and Boff very confused. They bonk heads and collapse on the ground. Back in the office.
So where is home for you?
Home for me, it's a far, far away land, far from Emporia, deep in the Salamandrian Isles.
Fascinating. Well, where's your home port? Where are you taking the ship?
You ask a lot of questions.
I just like to know who I'm doing business with.
And if I gave my final destination to every person who asked, I wouldn't be alive.
And if I didn't ask so many questions, I wouldn't be either.
The two stare at each other for a moment, reaching a little bit of a tense impasse. However, back in Elena's quarters on the Sable Rose, Lilia has donned many of Elena's garments, all feathery and extravagant, while Elena sports a new golden anklet.
I always knew that I held all my confidence in my ankles, but now you have really shown me how truly wonderful I am. Thank you for this friendship.
You're welcome.
You know, we should really go down there and check on them. I'm sure everyone is getting along just like us. We are soul sisters.
Back on the old wives' tale?
Drake tackles Cornelius through the door of his captain's quarters. I'll show you to disrespect me on my ship!
But I'll show you to disrespect me on your ship!
Cutting back.
You don't see many female captains of ships. How did you become one?
What a rough ride it was. I had to sink many ships, become the ships, really lose myself to find my feathers. Do you know what I mean? You know, if you ever want to disappear and leave all this behind for the good life, I'll take you to Dora Dora. I hear it's so nice, they named it twice.
I've heard of Dora Dora. I've heard they have really nice beaches and hammocks, which I like.
Yes, and they have big pillows.
I love pillows.
Me too.
On the old wives' tale, both crews have gathered around as Drake Muldoon and Cornelius circle each other, now engaged in an official-looking bare-knuckle boxing match. Despite the fistfight going on, the air on the ship is filled with a jovial and sportsmanlike spirit.
The hatch to the lower deck swings open and green smoke billows out as Vivian, almost giddy with excitement, explodes onto deck.
All right, I thought I had a scrap. All right, folks, I'm taking bets on Captain Muldoon and the slippery fella. Come here, place your bets, folks.
Sidestepping with graceful footwork, Drake goes in for a right cross. 26.
Oh, you son of a roach!
Plenty more where that came from.
Cornelius takes a moment to rub his cheek, shake it off, and then Wildman flails into Drake. 24.
You didn't even try any of our soup!
What? Who punches like this? What are you, 11 years old?
Son of roaches! Unbelievable! Stop!
Elena has appeared on the deck of the old wives' tale, and at her behest, the entire crew of the Sable Rose springs up and runs behind her, their heads hung in shame.
I'll bend it. Vivian just pockets all of the bets that were placed and slowly descends below decks again.
Despite everything that just happened, I developed a very beautiful friendship with my soul sister. Her name is Lillian, and she has empowered me through my uncles. So I now want to gift you guys a wonderful gift.
The hatch to the lower deck flies open and the top half of Vivian's head pokes out.
Thank you, Lillian.
Drake dusts himself off a little embarrassed. Thank you. Sorry about all of that.
I'm sorry too, I got carried away myself.
My blood is still running hot, I suppose.
That's all right, Captain. We get it. Remember me, Scoots, from before?
Yes, Scoots. How could I possibly forget?
I feel unnoticed sometimes.
So what's this gift?
The persisting fog begins to roil over the deck as Elena takes center stage and presents her offer.
I am aware that you are traveling to the east, and you know that the east has things that you are unprepared of, things your eyeballs have never seen. So, to make sure that your travels are worth it, I have decided to gift you a boon.
A boon, you say? What is that?
A boon. A boon is a magical gift, something that you, like, a power that you never had before. A boon? No?
Not familiar.
Forgive me, Captain Elena, but a boon? Something to awaken the magic within us? It does not seem like something captain of a simple merchant ship could be able to do.
You don't want it, you don't have to have it.
No, I would very much like it. It is just very surprising. You are full of surprises.
As is the sea, my friend.
As is the sea.
Fair enough. We would be happy to accept.
In that case, I need to speak to each of you individually. Who will go first?
Vivian pops out of the hatch and lands on the upper deck. Me! I'll go first!
Elena motions Vivian over, and they walk back to her quarters.
The door closes behind them, and Vivian and Elena are left alone together. Elena motions for Vivian to sit in a big, fluffy pink armchair, and sits across from him, picking up a little bowl of soup.
Bueno, this is not the question, but are you comfortable?
Enough!
Let's begin.
Vivian, as you cast your eyes around the room, you see that the entire office is immaculately decorated with numerous artifacts from lands unknown, cloths and carpets of expensive and extravagant means, and most notably, behind a mahogany desk is an enormous contraption, many different colors, many different materials, with knobs, dials, levers, and buttons on it that you cannot identify. In shape, it resembles a massive telescope, but with variously shaped and sized apparatuses attached to it. Cornelius slips in behind you and begins to fiddle with these knobs and dials while Elena speaks to you.
What do you consider your greatest strength?
I'd like to pass on the question.
Interesting. Your choice. What do you consider your greatest weakness?
Pass.
Okay.
Cornelius begins to frantically move the knobs on the top of the machine and pulling the levers to the left.
Final question. What would you do to somebody who took something from someone you love?
Vivian's face goes stone hard, and through clenched teeth, he says, pass.
Though you withheld your answers, you answered the questions better than you thought. Are you ready to access your boon?
Yeah, let's have it.
Cornelius makes his final adjustments on the machine, lights a single match to a wick on the back of the machine that is actually more like a physical cannon.
There's a blast of wind. Vivian's fur is blown back as a shockwave of air shoots past him. Elena looks at you smugly, reaches down below her seat, and pulls out a stone slate, passing it over to you.
Think of someone who has passed on that means something to you and ask them something on this stone.
She hands you a piece of chalk as well.
You can practically hear Vivian's eyes roll in his head before he relents and writes on the piece of slate. Vivian writes, "Who am I talking to?"
As Vivian scrawls on the stone tablet with the chalk and finishes writing his question, the chalk lifts up on its own accord and scrawls out the name, Flynn Werner.
Vivian's usually pretty solid poker face drops, and he feverishly starts writing, "How are you doing, buddy?"
This time, there's no response.
Vivian tosses the slab back on the desk.
What a load of scat.
He gets up to leave.
Just before he reaches the door, Elena calls out to him.
Wait. Once a day, you are allowed to ask someone who's crossed over to the other side one question. Choose your questions wisely, and trust only those that you would trust in life. Even the dead can lie.
Vivian stomps back over to the desk, grabbing the chalk and slate roughly.
You won't need that. The power is within you. Simply write your question anywhere you want and wait.
Vivian trudges over to the door and stops for a second before turning over his shoulder.
Thank you.
Vivian exits. There's a moment, and then Bastian comes through the door.
Hello, we meet again.
Hello? Do I talk fast or?
Have a seat.
All right.
Bastion now plops down in the pink fluffy armchair.
So for my first question, if you had to choose between a huge banana sundae or a cake the size of a mountain, which one would you choose?
Bastion pauses. All right. In what context? Like, is this for me to eat? Is this I'm sorry. I'm very confused.
Which would you pick?
Bastion awkwardly adjusts in the armchair. Can I have the options again?
Which one would you pick? The sundae or the cake?
The cake?
Do you now have the ability to dance as an expert? Which one would you be an expert in? Would you be an expert in flamenco or tap?
Well, I'm furthest away from tap dance, so I would like to tap.
Tap. And now for your third question.
All right.
You have the ability to save anyone in the world. Nothing would go wrong. Who is it?
Do they have to be in danger right now, or
Yes.
Do I have to know they're in danger, or can it just be...
Who is in danger now that you could help?
What if I do not know they are in danger, but I just want to make sure that they are
Spit
fine?
it out. 1, 2, 3, go.
My mother.
Your mother. Okay. Elena turns back and nods to Cornelius.
Cornelius returns the nod and moves over to the machine, pulling down levers 3 times. 1, 2, 3.
Once again, Cornelius lights the wick, and a blast of air is fired out at Bastion, flopping his ears backwards over his head.
You are indecisive when it comes to trivial matters, but you are very sure when it comes to the things that you love. I have granted you the ability to protect those that you love. Like a sixth sense, if you will.
Elena picks up a small paperweight off of her desk and hurls it at Bastion as hard as she can.
In a flash, Bastion's trunk lashes out and grabs the paperweight. That was, I saw that coming from a mile away.
Bastion's uncanny ability to snatch flying objects out of the air has been amplified. It's almost as if he can see it before it's happening.
If you find yourself next to someone that you love and they are in danger, you will need no time to make any decision.
Thank you. Do you mind if I ask how you're able to do this kind of magic?
Time. More time than you can fathom.
Since you are able to see something into me that I do not like to discuss, and since you have certain powers, do you know if she is safe, my mother?
What does your gut tell you?
There's a beat of silence, and then Elena speaks up again.
Trust yourself, Bastion. She waits for you.
Yes. Yes. As long as I stay on the open ocean, she will be fine. All right. I will go get my next compatriot, right?
Yes, thank you.
In a daze, Bastion stands up, kind of forgets where the door is. Oh, right. Oops.
Bastion exits, and then, after another beat, Lilia enters.
Hi!
Oh, my sweet friend. Okay, so for your first question, if you were to rule, would you like to rule on land or sea?
That's a good question. I feel like if I were to rule, I would like it to be a rather small island that would be a very happy place with lots of boats.
Cornelius makes some adjustments on the machine.
And now for your second question. When you were younger, what was your greatest dream?
Well, actually, my greatest dream was to be a pirate. I always loved the sea and watching the boats come in and out of port. At first, and it's kind of embarrassing, but I was a little seasick. So first on the boat, I would have to kind of vomit over the sides and just hope no one would notice. And I'd always play it off by saying, "What a cool fish!" I don't think anyone bought it, but it made me feel better, you know? But a pirate. So I am that now, which is nice.
Wonderful. Do you know how to conquer anything? Now for your third question, what is your favorite color?
Blue. but like a turquoise blue. Not those dark, deep, kind of sad blues, but the happy, bright ones.
I totally get it.
Cornelius makes final adjustments and lights the wick.
And another blast of air strikes Lilia, pushing her fur backwards.
You have the purest heart of all. So when you sing, you will find that everyone will listen. And from where they drew bravery, they will now draw fearlessness.
Lilia, the inspiration you give to your crewmates when you sing will now double under all circumstances.
Lilia puts her hands to her throat as she starts to feel the responsibility of this new power. Thank you so much. That'll come in very handy, especially when we're getting into a bit of a spat. Now, I have a question for you. When's your birthday?
My birthday's on the first day of the rainy season.
Okay, 'cause I have kind of a special means of travel sometimes, so I think it would be fun if we went to Dora Dora for your birthday next year. It could be like a trip for us.
That is a lovely idea. We will see if it works out. But for now, take this necklace, and you can always think of me wherever you are. Elena hands her a sapphire necklace.
The necklace is unremarkable in terms of magic, but in terms of beauty is second to none.
Thank you. Oh, this'll go lovely with my anklets. So I guess that just leaves the captain now. I'll go tell him. And thank you both again so much. I want to try some of that barley soup. And Lilia gets up and walks out of the door.
Finally, at least somebody's gonna try the soup. Spent all day making that hog-pen soup.
After another beat, Captain Drake Muldoon enters the quarters. As he does, Elena gestures once again to the big, fluffy pink armchair.
Hello?
Hello, Captain, oh Captain.
Drake takes off his hat again and sits in the chair.
Get comfortable. For your first question, what was your favorite meal as a child?
Bit hard to answer. Not a terrible amount of variety, I'm afraid, in my childhood meals. You see, I grew up on a work colony, Greywater Harbor. Mostly protein cubes, made up of various bits and ends. So, I didn't get my first good meal until I was about 15. A beetle steak, cooked medium rare, and a side of mash.
It's been a millennia since I've had a beetle steak.
Yeah, okay, beetle steak, okay. Second question. Who is your best friend?
Well, that one's easy. It's Bastion, of course. The big galumph who came in second.
I do remember him. And now, for your third question, if I was to walk up to you and hand you a vial, and you drank this vial and it gave you the opportunity to change your life, you didn't have to do this anymore, be on the ship, you can do anything you wanted, would you drink it or would you continue your journey?
This one stumps Drake, and he looks down at the ground in concentration. There's only one thing that would make me give up this life, and I doubt any vial could give it to me. So no. But if it could, I'd trade it all in a second.
What for, if I may ask? For riches, for fame, for
love, of course.
You're in love.
Well, I was, but I managed to muck it up something awful. It's in the past. So long ago now, I have a hard time even picturing her face.
Why did you leave her behind?
Well, it could never work. I may be a creature of the sea, but not enough of one.
For the duration of this interview, Cornelius has yet to touch the machine. When Drake finishes, he steps over to the machine and presses a single button, then lights the wick.
As the wick descends, the machine about to fire, Elena says,
Sometimes this process is a bit complicated, but I know exactly what to give you.
The blast of air strikes Drake in his chair, and a little bit of oxygen is forced from Drake's lungs.
Elena walks to the back of the room and gestures to a basin with water in it. Put your face in the water.
Excuse me?
Put your face in the water.
Dunk my face into the basin.
The whole face and then in the water.
All right. I don't see why. It seems silly. Drake submerges his head in the water.
And as he does, Drake feels little flaps of skin on his neck lift as he seamlessly begins to breathe the salty water.
Oh, my hog. How did you...
When the heart finally opens up to what it wants, the body gives it what it needs. But part of me thinks that you are taking for granted what you have right in front of you. Now you can make your choice without limitations.
Thank you very much. And Drake collects his things and slowly walks out of the room, back towards the ship.
This time, Elena and Cornelius follow and join both crews on the decks of the ships. Scoots approaches the group.
I've been sending sonar everywhere. So far, we're still alone. Though I think the fog's starting to lift.
Then it is time for us to leave. Adios, my friends. It has been lovely.
Drake does another low bow. A pleasure, Captain Elena.
The pleasure's all mine.
Cornelius steps forward and returns his hand to Drake as he did when they arrived.
Listen, man, just take a hint.
Scoots goes into a deep bow, straightens himself, and nods as he heads back onto the Sable Rose. Both crews move to their respective ships. The planks retract, but before they bring up their anchor, Elena speaks to Drake from across the water.
You have a very dangerous journey ahead of you. A great many ships travel east, but very few return. We never did.
As the Sable Rose pulls up its anchor and begins to move through the water, it phases through the massive sandbar that protrudes from the ocean, gently floating east. Elena, now seemingly a bit translucent as the fog begins to dissipate and the sun begins to shine through, calls out one final warning.
Good luck, my friends. Your next adventures in the east will not be as amicable as this one. Use your boons as they were meant to be used. And remember this warning. When water is black, you must turn back.
That warning echoes and reverberates across the water as the fog finally dissipates and the Sable Rose fades away into nothing, leaving the crew of the Old Wives' Tale with their jaws agape, alone in the open ocean, still clutching the extra supplies and gifts they received from the crew of the Sable Rose.
Bastion faints.
About 5 minutes later, Bastion emerges from a cold tub of water as his crewmates revive him.
There you go, big fella.
In the commotion, Drake has wandered off in thought and is in his cabin.
Vivian pats the still kneeling Bastion on top of his head.
No need to thank old Vivian. I'll be in me cabin.
Vivian heads off below decks toward his cabin.
Lilia, now adorned with a red feather boa, gently pats Bastion on the shoulder. How are you feeling? That's the fastest I've ever seen you faint.
Lilia, that was a few of my least favorite things back to back. How was your time with them?
It was good, but I'm really sad that they weren't alive. We were going to go on a trip together, but I guess that will have to wait. I don't know. Do ghosts take vacations? But we can talk about something else now. I don't want you to faint. It would be very hard for me to lift you again. Vivian did most of that. He wasn't very gentle, so you might have some bruising.
No, really, it's fine, Lilia. It was more of the shock of it all. I thought that they were just creepy fortune tellers with magic powers. That was already not very good. And then it got worse, but they're on our side. I'm just acting silly. At least I didn't dance with a ghost, right? Don't go telling people I danced with a ghost. I didn't dance with a ghost.
No judgment. But I think it's good, because from what I can tell, it looks like it's going to be very difficult for us the farther east we go. So it's nice that we happened upon what seems to be the only nice ship.
Do you think it was a test?
As if to answer Bastion's question, the Old Wives' Tale begins to float past a couple of wooden spires poking out of the ocean. As they become a little more frequent, you look at them a little more closely and can tell that they are the tops of masts. Looking through the water, tracking the sunbeams, you can see the dark, faded silhouettes of scores of ships and vessels at the bottom of the ocean, resting on the sand.
Well, whatever it was, I think we passed it.
Moving down into the depths of the Old Wives' Tale, Vivian Stoker sits alone in his cabin.
Vivian finishes cleaning up the refuse from the explosion in his cabin, and sits on the bed, facing the mirror on top of his dresser. He opens a drawer that is filled with pocket watches and pulls one out, setting it on the table and opening it.
Vivian stares at the pocket watch. Minutes tick by, then hours.
Vivian looks into the mirror. Unlike Drake Muldoon, he doesn't have a sketchbook to go through his memories with. He takes off his bug leather vest and opens his shirt. Interspersed between the tribal markings tattooed all over his body are a multitude of scars of various sizes and shapes. His eyes land on one in between his 5th and 6th rib, just below his heart. Absent-mindedly, he runs his paw over it, waiting to use his boon again.
After hours have passed, Vivian picks up the nearest piece of charcoal he can find.
On an absent piece of wall, where some of his stuff was blown off the shelf, Vivian writes, "Do you have any regrets busting me out of Stonehill?" ?
Vivian sets the charcoal down, and then after a brief moment, it rises again and begins to write underneath Vivian's question. Not a one.
2 rare things occur on Vivian's face. First, the slightest beginning of a smile lifts the corners of his mouth. Second, a single tear runs down his cheek.
Talk to you tomorrow, mate.
Up in the crow's nest, Lilia's eyes scan the horizon, left alone again in the dead of night. She notices Edgar climbing up the ladder, hoisting himself through the small hole and up into the large bucket that makes up the crow's nest.
So, you figured out the compass, did you?
I think so. I definitely found that secret compartment. But there must be some kind of time limit on it. Like I only get a certain amount of time once I go a place before I have to pop back.
Ah, yes. Like a boomerang of sorts. You must return. Interesting.
Edgar stands up and looks out to sea for a moment.
Well, I can't think of another person who deserves such a device more than you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Also, I like these little midnight visits. They're fun.
Edgar smiles, a little bit of a sad expression coming across his face.
Well, I've had difficulty sleeping as of late. I can only assume the answer will become clear as time moves forward. But in the meantime, keep it close. It could be what saves us one day.
Oh no, I don't want to get rid of this. I like it.
Well, that's very good to hear, Lilia.
Edgar turns and begins to climb down the ladder.
Oh, I almost forgot.
He pulls something out of his pocket, a satchel, just 2 inches wide and 2 inches tall, and places it on the ground.
For Henrietta.
And he descends.
Lilia excitedly goes over and opens the little satchel.
It's a little pouch of sugar.
Ooh, you're in for a treat tonight, Henrietta.
Lilia begins to joyfully feed her pet firefly, ladling little bits of sugar into the glass jar. The old wives' tale begins to sail eastward as we move down to the main deck to see Bastian staring out at the water.
Bastian uncorks a bottle of wine and takes a long, deep drink. He begins to absent-mindedly fiddle with his earring and looks out to sea. A ghost told me that you were okay today. So, I'm going to take that as a good thing. She told me to trust myself, and I think we both know that I have a hard time doing that. I think I was right. That as long as I stay here on the ocean, you will be safe. But if I am right about that, then that means I am right about a whole lot of other things too. And I can come back one day, and I can show you all the things I have been working on. And Bastian takes his bow staff and begins to do a dance with it. See, one day, once the footwork is all worked out, this will be wonderful. I cannot wait to show you.
In the captain's quarters,
Drake is sitting in his leather armchair, drinking a glass of brandy, in deep thought. Sort of unconsciously, he walks over to a drawer in his desk, opens it up and pulls out a notebook of parchment, and begins to flip through it. He lands on a particular sketch and stares at it. It's a rough portrait in charcoal of a beautiful female seahorse, posed on a love seat, surrounded by swaying kelp. He sips his brandy absent-mindedly.
As Drake sips on his drink, there's a very quiet whispering. Perhaps it's the wind. Drake, make a perception check.
23.
As you strain your ears and listen closely, you can make out the same phrase being repeated again and again in a hushed whisper.
Sunk by the famous Drake Muldoon.
This repeats over and over again until one whisper pokes out above all the rest.
The famous Drake Muldoon. I can see you. I can see you, Captain.
Drake throws his glass and in the same motion unsheaths his cutlass and wheels around the room, looking for the source of the voice.
A cold, sighing laughter rings in Drake's ears.
I'm not there, Captain, but I can still see you. There's nowhere you can hide from me.
Where are you? Come out, you coward!
I am coming, Captain. I will meet you soon enough. You have something of mine. You have my phylactery.
The reality of who's been speaking dawns on Drake. Is Queen Olivia all right? Or would you prefer Her Royal Saltiness the Eighth? My apologies, it's not every day that I have an audience with the Queen.
Careful, Captain. A man with a tongue full of thorns will often find blood in his own mouth.
Drake sheathes his cutlass and walks over to the cupboard, grabbing a new glass, having shattered the old one, and pours himself a stiff brandy. Ah, blood in the mouth. I have just the remedy for such a thing. And Drake downs his brandy, before pouring himself another one.
A confident one. Those are my favorite. My armada is coming, Captain, to take back what is mine.
And we'll sink 'em, the lot. We already dealt with your carnivorous friend. Fairly handily, I might add.
Yes, but you didn't finish the job. You left that to me.
Well, as long as he's dead. And Drake downs his second glass.
Dead he is, Captain. But you will be seeing him again. Very, very soon.
After Drake sets down the crystal goblet, it begins to melt onto the wood, as if it were made of wax and exposed to a flame. As it does, you feel the whispery presence withdraw, and you are left with your own thoughts, Drake.
Well, bugger it all, I hope we bartered for glassware. Those are my last two.
The old wives' tale begins to disappear into the east, the moon shining brightly ahead. And far, far in the distance, hundreds of yards behind the ship, a deep, black, frilled fin pokes out of the water, lifts 5, 6, 7, then 8 feet out, and in an arcing motion disappears back into the blue. The challenges that lie eastward are great, but armed with new boons and new affirmations, the crew of the old wives' tale heads into the unknown.
I set upon the ship at dawn, I wouldn't dare be late. Abilities were checked to see if I could pull my weight. For my first meal, a lemon peel, the best I ever ate. The grand old ship began the trip, our fortune we were making. Silver, copper, platinum, gold, I seek the things that can't be sold.
This has been a Hero Club production, produced by Nick Williams and George Primavera, with associate producers Marty Abbey Schneider and Dylan McCullum. Voice acting by George Primavera, Nick Williams, Hannah Fagerbaki, Dylan McCullum, Marty Abbey Schneider, Natalie DeLazio Stafford, Kevin Stafford, and Lauren Dragon. Theme song written by Matthew McCullum and performed by Hannah Fagerbaki. Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod and Ben Doyle for their incredible music, Mage Hand Press for their genius D&D 5th edition homebrew, and Marty Abbey Schneider for his amazing artwork. Thanks for listening, and welcome to the club.
I'll count me blessed if I ne'er rest till this world I subdue. In every cove's a treasure trove.
It's all for the taking.
Silver, copper, platinum, gold. I seek the things that can't be sold. I seek the things that can't be sold.
The second one was what my dream was as a child. Spoiler alert, it was to be a pirate. So that's nice. And then the third...
Spoiler alert!